40 minutes. And then we let them go. It's not even close.
Good evening. We have a couple of quick items before we get to the zoning case. It'll just take we'll be to the zoning case probably within 25 minutes. I'd like to call the Public Housing Authority Commission meeting to order and ask the clerk to please take the roll.
Chairman Tiptrani.
Here.
Commissioner Lopez.
Here.
Commissioner Dearman is absent excused. Commissioner McClymans.
Here.
Commissioner Rowe.
Here.
Commissioner Wong.
Yep.
Here.
Commissioner Stewart.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. First item is unscheduled public appearances. Anybody wishing to address the Public Housing Authority Commission on any item that's not posted, now is the time to do so. Public appearances. Seeing none, Commission, you do have a consent agenda that's comprised of the minutes and 2 other items. What's your pleasure?
Okay.
Lopez.
Yes, I vote for approval of the consent agenda for the Public Housing Authority Commission for November 5th.
We have a motion by Commissioner Lopez, a second by Commissioner Hartke. Further discussion on the motion? Please poll the commission.
Commissioner Lopez,
Yes.
Commissioner McClymans,
Yes.
Commissioner Rowe,
Yes.
Commissioner Wong,
Yes.
Commissioner Hartke,
Yes.
Commissioner Stewart,
Yes.
Yes.
carries unanimously.
Okay, meeting adjourned. Good evening. Welcome to the Chandler City Council study session of Monday, November 5, 2018. First item on the agenda is scheduled public appearances. If I could ask Councilmember Stewart to join me out front. Okay, scheduled public appearances. First scheduled public appearance is Service Recognition Awards. We have 3 employees tonight receiving awards representing our community services and public works department. I'd like to ask City Manager Marcia.
Thank you, City Manager. I'd like to ask Jason Taylor to come forward to receive his 10-year service recognition. Jason Taylor began his service to the city in November 2008 as a wastewater treatment plant operator 1 at the Airport Water Reclamation Facility, where he learned the basics of wastewater treatment. Jason later moved to the Ocotillo Water Reclamation Facility, where he earned a Grade 3 wastewater operator certification from the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality and was promoted to Water Treatment Plant Operator 2. In December 2017, the new membrane bioreactor treatment process began operation at the Ocotillo plant. Jason participated in process and equipment training, as well as commissioning of the treatment process. Jason is one of just a very few staff capable of operating this very technical and complicated facility. He is currently expanding his skill set in laboratory analysis to perform process control and compliance testing. Jason is working very hard to continue his education and is preparing for the Department of Environmental Quality's Grade 4 wastewater operator exam. Thank you, Jason, for 10 years of dedication, providing these essential services for the residents of Chandler. Next, I'd like to ask Rudy Martinez from our Streets Division to come forward. Rudy began his tenure with the City of Chandler in 1998 as a maintenance worker within the Parks Department, maintaining the streets right-of-way covering all 80 square miles of Chandler. In 2005, he got a little help, and a colleague joined him, and that way they were able to divide up the 80 square miles of the city into 40 square miles each. In 2006, he was promoted to a street specialist, and again in 2015 promoted to a streets landscape technician. He has continuously pursued and participated in professional development endeavors and holds certifications including Master Gardener, Backflow Prevention, Turf Ornamental, Horticulture Pest Management, Right-of-Way Weed Management. Rudy's has a great success throughout the transformation of rural Chandler to an urban city we know today. Today, we celebrate him and his collective contributions to Chandler. Thank you, Rudy.
Next scheduled public appearance, we have a retirement recognition. Councilmember Stewart's going to be retiring. Just want to make sure you're paying attention. Okay, we have one retirement recognition, a real one, actually. Deborah Lawless, who has served 32 years with the City of Chandler. I'd like to ask the city manager to begin the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. I would ask Brenda Brown to return to the podium to make the presentation for the retirement.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'd like to invite Debbie Lawless to come forward and join you. Debbie Lawless started her career with the City of Chandler in January of 1986. She was hired as an accounting clerk. She was later promoted to Accounting Clerk 2, doing accounts payable. Following her time in accounts payable, she was promoted to Accounting Clerk 3, overseeing the general ledger, processing journal entries, and finally in 2001, she was reclassed to a senior accounting specialist. During that time, Debbie was part of a team that introduced Oracle, the city's financial system, to the City of Chandler. In March of 2007, Debbie was hired as the Arts Center Financial Specialist, where she did the bookkeeping for the Arts Center Division and the Chandler Cultural Foundation, a 501c3 organization. While working with the City of Chandler, she and her husband Frank have raised two beautiful daughters, Rachel and Elizabeth, one who works in the library now, and who both graduated from Arizona State University. Congratulations on 32 years of dedicated service to the City of Chandler, Debbie.
Congratulations. Next scheduled public appearance is a presentation, Relay for Life. Ask Mr. Mike Perry to come forward to make the presentation. You want to do it from here?
Yeah, I'll do it right here.
Are you sure you want to do it there?
Mayor and Council, my name is Mike Perry, and I'm a volunteer with the American Cancer Society's Relay for Life. Thank you for giving me a couple minutes tonight. It's very important. Just want to let everybody know that Relay for Life is the largest volunteer-run, community-driven fundraising event in the world. By devoting our time and energy, we raise awareness and money and are the voice of hope for the American Cancer Society. Through our efforts, we fulfill the mission of the American Cancer Society to save lives and celebrate life each and every day. This year, our event is on Saturday night, April 27th, starting at 6 p.m. at Basha High School. It is a 12-hour overnight event. Mayor Tipshrane and council members, we came to you 7 years ago to try to get more support from the council in the city of Chandler. I want to thank you tonight for providing that support. Since that day, we now have the Chandler Fire Department and the Chandler Police Department involved with our relay. Their participation is inspiring to all who attend, especially the kids. I'd like to give a special shout out to Paul Merrill at the Chandler Fire Department and to Robin Atwood at the Chandler Police Department. Last year, for the first time, the Chandler Police Department became our top fundraising team, raising over $20,000. The Chandler Chamber of Commerce recently joined our relay and provide tremendous exposure to the local business community. Of course, we cannot do what we do without the support of the Chandler community, who have volunteered their time and their energy to make this a great event. So once again, tonight, I'm asking all of Chandler to rise up, join our relay, and help us put an end to cancer. Mayor Tipshrane and the council members, with your support and the support of many volunteers in Chandler and some of our event leadership team is here tonight. You guys would wave. There they are. Over the last 6 years, because of your involvement, the Chandler Relay has raised over $1 million to help end cancer. Since its inception, the Chandler Relay has raised over $2 million, an incredible achievement for our volunteers and our community. So tonight, I want to take this opportunity on behalf of our event leadership team to thank Mayor Tipshrane for his leadership and stewardship in guiding Chandler to be the best in the state. Mayor, thank you again for making a difference in the fight against cancer by supporting Relay for Life. I hope you continue to be a part of our relay and that your term comes to an end. And I hope you join us as a participant or just stop by to say hi. And I think that our future mayor will also have an interest in Relay for Life. I don't think he has a choice. So anyway, so thank you once again. So for more information or to sign up to be a participant in Relay for Life, please go to www.chandlerrelay.org. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Next scheduled public appearance of recognition, pancakes and pavers, and community project partners. Tonight, we are recognizing several community partners for their significant contributions to local nonprofits and residents. On September 7th, 500 students from Valley Christian High School served hot pancakes at AZ Send. Pavers installed at AZ Send, formerly Chandler Christian Community Center, and the East Valley Jewish Community Center, and completed projects at our 5 public housing sites. Old Castle Company donated the pavers, which were installed by professionals from Paver Aces and Aggie Inc. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Pioneer Landscape Centers, and Eco Shield Pest Control helped with the project as well. Resurrection Street Ministries provided the food, equipment, and know-how to serve hundreds of residents. Together, $23,671 of donated material was provided, with another $38,000 approximately worth of donated time from volunteers. We would like to recognize several organizations that came together to help a Chandler resident in need. Old Castle, Sunmaster Masonry, Cemex, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and All Pro Fence worked together to replace a dilapidated wooden fence with a brand-new block wall for a father with disabilities and limited income. At this time, I would like to call up Danae Pressler to announce the organizations to be recognized for these generous contributions. And we will have them come up when she announces them, and we'll do a photo and present you with some things. So, Danae?
Mayor. I would also like to welcome a couple of our hosts that had the projects at their site. So if, from Ascend, if we could have Trinity Donovan and Dara Gibson join us, as well as Hadassah Ballinger from the East Valley Jewish Community Center to recognize these following groups. From Old Castle Superlight, Reuben Huntington and Nathan Angel. From the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Stephen Bishop. From Valley Christian Schools, Dan Kuiper and Tom Croak. From Paver Aces, Danny Schmerfeld. From Aggie Inc., Eric Gomez. From Resurrection Street Ministry, Bill Barry and Dan Walton. With Eco Shield Pest Control, Doug Carden. With Sunmaster Masonry, Zach Nicholson. With Cemex, Alan Rehorst. And last but not least, with All Pro Fence Company, would Ryan Nielsen please come forward to accept our congratulations and recognition. Any representatives from Cemex?
Jim, take a photo.
Looks good. And we'll take 3 photos, so hang in there. Gotta back up a little. There's 2. 3. Thank you.
Council, we do have the rest of the study session agenda. We'll be addressing that Thursday evening, if that's okay with everybody. Okay. So with that, we adjourn the study session. Right on schedule. I'd like to call the meeting of the Chandler City Council to order, the meeting of Monday.
Let us pray. Dear Father, we thank you this evening that we've come together in your holy place. Dear Father, lift up our voices so that all can be heard. Let this meeting go forward with grace and with peace and with joy. Dear Father, we thank you for our leadership and those whom are not here and wish to be here. We thank them for their voices. Dear Father, we look up to you because we know where our leadership comes from. Dear Father, one more thing. That all those whom are hungry, on the streets, feeling alone, dear Father, give them comfort, give them joy. Let them know that we are with them as we carry on. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, council member. Council, I'm going to move item 5 to action. That leaves the consent agenda as comprised of items 1 through 4. What's your pleasure?
Mayor,
Vice Mayor.
I move for approval of the consent agenda for the regular meeting of Monday, November 5th.
We have a motion.
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Vice Mayor, second by Councilmember Wong. Further discussion on the consent agenda items 1 through 4. Council, please vote the consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda passes unanimously with the exception of item 5, which is moved to the action agenda.
Okay. Next item is item 5, resolution number 5197, Chandler Air Park Area Plan Amendment and introduction of ordinance 4837, solid cabinetry. At this time, I would like to ask for a staff presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Item before you this evening, as you said, it's a two-part item. It's an area plan amendment and a rezoning case. Area plan amendment is APL 180001, Chandler Air Park Area Plan Amendment, and DVR 18003, solid cabinetry. It involves a request for an area plan amendment to the Chandler Air Park Area Plan from parks and open space to light industrial, as well as a rezoning and PDP for solid cabinetry. As with all zoning cases, zoning requests of this nature, we started our general plan. This is our 2016 general plan map. Subject site is highlighted in a red box there. You'll notice a couple things on this important to note. One, the property is located within an area that's identified for employment land uses. Two, it's located within the Chandler Air Park area and within that number 3, the Chandler Air Park growth area. Takes us to our next slide, which is the Chandler Air Park area plan map as it was adopted back in 1998. So when we look to amend the area plan, we start at this point here. Again, that site is highlighted in the red box. You can see it's green, parks and open space. A couple interesting things to note on this map. So this is as the plan was adopted in 1998. It contemplated taking the runway from at the present time about 4,800 feet to right around 6,800 feet. To get there, we would have to do two things. One, realign Germain Road. You can see that on the north, kind of encompassed partly in that subject site outline box. And then two, on the south side, it was going to necessitate a realignment of Queen Creek Road to accommodate not only their longer runway, but the runway protection zones that fall outside of that, but also need to be contained within the airport property. Today, 20 years later, this is what that map looks like. It's pretty close to the original map of 1998. There's been a few minor adjustments along the way, kind of around the perimeter of that map. You will see, importantly, Queen Creek Road, that alignment's been fixed, and it is a straight line shot on that southern end. The subject side at the north, still green, still outlined in that box, and Germain Road has been realigned, bending up around the subject site. Important things about this map, really, the future kind of long-term plan for, at the time, concept of 6,800 foot runway is no longer achievable with the alignment of Queen Creek. The presently longest achievable runway is slightly over 5,550-ish feet. Today, it's still not that. It's 5,000 or 4,870. Even looking at it from a 5,550 foot runway, from an area plan amendment standpoint, the subject site is no longer needed because even at the 5,550 foot runway length, the runway protection zone falls still fully within airport property. Technically, the subject site is not necessary to be acquired by the airport to maintain and contain that runway protection zone. It is fully within the current airport property, even when planned for that longest achievable runway of 5,550 feet. So when we look at the private property that the subject site is and look to change that land use designation, we look to this map and simply look at the land uses to determine what's the most appropriate land use at the end of a runway if it's not public parks and open space. Things that would want to be desirable attributes of a land use at the end of a runway would be something that's not noise sensitive. Light industrial is generally uses that are not noise sensitive because most of the time they're indoors making more noise than the airplanes that are flying overhead. Second, it's also a good attribute is employee density. So the least amount of employees in there, the better at the end of it. Looking at that list, light industrial is a very appropriate land use to consider amending the Air Park Area Plan 2, and that takes us to this slide. So you'll see that that subject site has gone from that green parks and open space to purple light industrial. As part of the area plan amendment tagged to it is the rezoning request. So the next couple slides are simply to show you the site design. You'll see the site design for the proposed solid cabinetry facility. You'll see phase 1 and phase 2, all encompassing it's about 250,000 square feet in a single story building set in that site. You'll see on the far right side there's a future pad for another building, not a part of this request in terms of the PDP. Just the PDP is simply focusing on phase 1 and phase 2 of the solid cabinetry. Next slide shows the landscape plan, just to give it a little bit more of a color context of the site design. Not going to spend a whole lot of time on this, just want to highlight the fact that even though it is a large building, overhead doors, the building orientation, it's been oriented with the doors facing southwesterly, using the building to physically screen the overhead door views from the arterial street roadway views. And then simply an exhibit to show you the perspective rendering of the building as seen from Germain Road. As part of these rezoning requests that are in the airport, we take them to the Airport Commission for a conflicts evaluation. We did that with this subject request. back in May. And at the time, it was a two-building proposal. Buildings were split, and it came before the Airport Commission, and they made a finding of a conflict and sent forth mitigation measures such as notification to the FAA during construction times and mostly proper notification requirements. After that Airport Commission hearing, the applicant went back and made some amendments to the plan, ultimately pulling the buildings back together and having a now single building plan. That went back before Airport Commission on August 8th for the conflicts evaluation. Same conflict finding was made, and the same mitigation measures were sent forward. About that time, we started getting input from various airport stakeholders that this may actually represent a conflict. It may conflict with airport operations. So while it was coming through the process and it ended up at City Council, we ultimately continued the case to spend some time for the applicant to go submit what is known as the 7460 Notice of Proposed Construction or Alteration Review by the FAA. That was done and came back with a determination of no conflict. At the same time, the proposal was sent for evaluation through the city's FAA consultant. Our FAA consultant looked at it through kind of two lenses. Today, based on the 4870 runway, and tomorrow, a 5550 runway length, looking at it both from the departure and arrival surfaces. That review ended up with a graphic that showed that you can kind of see in the upper right-hand corner of this graphic, a portion of the building as originally proposed when it went to Airport Commission did actually penetrate into those departure and arrival air surfaces by the tune of about 12 feet. That review was then sent back to the applicant, and the applicant, staff, and our airport consultant and airport folks met to look at proposed modifications of that building. Ultimately, the applicant has reduced that building height down, effectively pulling it out of entirely those the departure and arrival surfaces. This graphic here shows the building's modifications, pulling it again out of the today and future slope surfaces. To augment that one step further, planning staff has added PDP condition number 7, and I'll just read it for the record. Buildings and or appendages shall not penetrate the current and future arrival and departure slope surfaces based upon the maximum runway length identified within the 2016 Airport Layout Plan, ALP, on file with the FAA. Again, we met with the applicant, our FAA consultant, and reviewed the changes as proposed, as demonstrated in that graphic, and the group determined ultimately that with it being outside of those slope surfaces, it does not penetrate into those and represent a conflict. To kind of bring this back to focus for this evening, the request this evening is, just as I stated in the beginning, it's an area plan amendment, APL 180001, and a rezoning case, DVR 18003, solid cabinetry. It's an area plan amendment going from parks and open space to light industrial, a rezoning from AG1 to planned area development for industrial, and then PDP approval for the site layout and building architecture. Went before Planning Commission. Planning Commission staff are recommending approval of the area plan amendment and rezoning case. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So I can understand. So why was it zoned park, or why was it set up as park? Just is there a tax benefit? It's ag. Everything's ag until it's not, right? And then it was zoned as a park, or that was just a recommendation for it, or was that done for tax purposes? Or can you tell me why it was that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So back in 1998, when the airport area plan was established, they were looking at a long-term land use plan for the airport. At the time, the thinking and the plan was a 6,800-foot runway. And so to accommodate that, not only did Germain and McQueen have to be kind of bent outwardly, the parks and open space was going to be necessary to accommodate runway protection zones and things at the end of the runway that ultimately would need to be acquired by the city and held as part of the airport property. As Queen Creek became fixed at the southern lane in a straight alignment, the maximum achievable runway length went from 6,800 to about 5,550. And as that runway shrunk, the runway protection zone also pulled in, and even looking at the 5550 runway today with the runway protection zone at the northern end, it all falls today within airport property and does not penetrate onto the private property. Therefore, it's not necessary to be acquired by the airport anymore.
Two questions. The first one is to be short. So how many airports do we have in Arizona? Municipal airports?
And I would have to probably defer that maybe to our airport administrator. I don't know, in Chandler, we have Chandler Municipal Airport, and then we have a private air park, Stellar Air Park. In the state of Arizona, I don't know, but I could probably get that answered for you.
20 or 10 or so? I expect that's a quick question.
Councilmember.
Yes.
There's approximately probably 80 to 90 public use
80 to
airports.
90, okay.
Also a variety of private airports, air parks, airstrips.
Okay.
I don't know off the top.
How about the municipal?
Municipal probably around 70, 80. Most public airports in the state and throughout the United States are typically owned by a private entity, whether a municipality or a separate authority acting under a joint powers agreement.
And how many of them are under 5,000 feet? The runway.
Mayor, council member, the majority of the airports in the United States are generally short, and that includes airstrips and small general aviation airports. Generally, I don't know off the top of my head, but generally the longer, an airport with longer runways tend to have more operations, tend to end up accommodating more and more diverse types of aviation traffic.
Yeah, so
I don't have a figure of how many airports have a runway at or in excess of 5,000 feet, but I could certainly find that out and follow up at a later moment.
So to my knowledge, I think in Arizona, there's only 1 or 2 that's under 5,000 feet.
Mayor, council member, there are many airports that have shorter runways.
Okay.
I can tell you certainly in Maricopa County, for which I can speak, the Chandler Municipal Airport is the only publicly owned public use airport not have a 5,000-foot runway.
Okay.
There are certainly different air parks and certain private entities that have smaller runways, but certainly for the county.
Okay. And one more question. So do we have any example? I'm talking about the airport that have longer than 4,000 feet, or to maybe any airport that have buildings over 30 feet high at the end of a runway. Do we have any airport doing that?
Mayor, council member, there are examples of some airports that do have buildings located near the end of runways.
But how near?
Mayor, council member, I don't know off the top of my head. I know that there are examples that I can think of. Probably 4 or 5 airports that I'm aware of that have a building in close proximity. I couldn't tell you how close or how far, but it is not uncommon.
Okay, one final question. So I'm sorry, I forget your name. I apologize. Yeah.
All right, Kevin.
Kevin. Okay, Kevin. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So Kevin, how far if when we extend the runway to 5,550 feet, how close is this building or solid chemistry, the distance between the line? Yeah.
Councilman, that's a good question. I believe the applicant actually in their presentation has that exact graphic that he'll get to, the actual distances, how far away the runway protection zone is, and how far the building is.
Yes.
So I would defer that to the applicant.
Okay, so, okay, I'll wait for their presentation. Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Mayor.
Councilmember Harkey.
Just a quick question, Mr. Mayo. So either way, regardless of this site, there is ability and full ability to develop this property or the airport to 5550, right? There is nothing, whether this building goes in or this building doesn't, the maximum air capacity or length that we've planned, either way, this can be built. And FAA has signed off on that, correct?
Mayor, council member, that's correct. Both viewed through the eyes of the FAA. As viewed through our 2016 airport layout plan that does look at the 5550 runway, and then our airport consultant looking at it through the arrival and departure slope surfaces. Both of those reviews indicate that this does not affect that future plan.
Councilmember Rowe.
Thank you, Mayor. Kevin, I've got a memo from Kaufman Associates, the consultant that the city was good enough to go out and talk to or get some study or information from. And I see the final paragraph in that, and it talks about, it seems pretty negative about this project. And you know what paragraph I'm talking about?
I do, yes.
So let me just read it because it's not too long. In summary, the proposed development beyond the northeast end of the runway 4R-22L would have significant addition of the planned runway environment when considering the ultimate departure surface. This could include limiting the potential for a runway extension and constraining the airport from being able to adequately meet future aviation demands. Is that, is there something that's after this that's come out from them?
Mayor, Councilmember, it's an excellent question. So that was reviewed by Kaufman Associates under the original proposal from the applicant. Following that memo, the applicant then went back, looked at what the graphic that memo also included, and reduced their building heights and relocated their mechanical equipment on top of the roof to effectively pull it out of those slope surfaces that are defined in that memo. We then met with the applicant, airport staff, our Kaufman and Associates representatives to review the applicant's proposed changes, and collectively the room said, good, it's been removed. So we don't have a memo that followed saying their modifications to the proposed plan are good, but collectively in the room, they were there, and everybody shaking their head saying, yep, they've got it out of what was causing that.
So there was
last paragraph.
No enthusiastic 2 thumbs up, but there was an approval essentially.
Yes, an agreement that it no longer represented a conflict with that air surface.
Yeah. One of the things about this project that's interesting is that you talked a little bit about when the word got out a little bit about this project that some of the leaseholders or property developers on the airport showed real concern about it. And so that prompted the city to do further work to try and address any issues that they had. Is that correct?
That's a factual statement.
And so today, after all that work that's been done, is there a consensus from those same individuals, those business owners, those stakeholders? Are they supporting this?
Through the mayor, another excellent question. I don't believe so. I do believe that the same folks that kind of prompted the question are here this evening to speak their concerns. The only thing I can tell you is that it did prompt the kind of a deeper dive look at not only the 7460-1, but also kind of engaging our airport consultant to look at the slope surfaces. And the question has prompted the billing to be studied even further at this stage to get it down and remove it from those conflict surface penetrations, we'll call them. Outside of that, I believe they have concerns on probably a larger scale, and I really don't want to steal their thunder and speak for them, so I'm sure they'll get up and tell us in a moment.
All right, so there was no, there's no real positive coming from those leaseholders, is that correct?
I've not been made aware of
any
statements.
And then I'm sorry, I had a little short couple of questions for Chris, if I could. Yeah, one of the big reasons for a longer runway is about, you want to tell me real quickly what that is?
Certainly. Mayor, council member, one of the advantages of having a longer runway is it increases the potential market share that the Chandler Municipal Airport can attract for aviation activities. Certainly larger, slightly larger aircraft, slightly heavier aircraft. It creates it helps us compete with our competing regional general aviation airports such as Falcon Field, Deer Valley, Scottsdale.
Yeah.
That is one of the advantages of having a longer runway.
Okay, so Chandler probably has the shortest runway of all major municipalities in the valley. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And hopefully someday it'll be 55, 50, who knows? However, another issue is that a short runway makes it difficult sometimes in certain weather for pilots to take off with certain loads. In other words, they can't really fuel up their aircraft. They have to only put in so much fuel, and because of the short runway. Is that correct?
Mayor, Councilmember, that is correct. It depends on obviously the size of the aircraft, but that lighter fuel load is a significant factor in takeoff capability.
Yeah. Isn't there some sort of a formula that goes into when a pilot is preparing to take off? He probably has weight issues and fuel, how much weight, how many passengers, how much luggage, and maybe even what kind of barriers might be at the end of the runway.
Mayor, Councilmember, yes, pilots, when they do their flight planning, will take into account all the variables, including the aircraft capabilities, the weather at the time, whether it's humidity, outside ambient temperature, certainly their weight, passengers and luggage, and also any potential terrain, whether it's man-made or natural. I have to state that I'm not a pilot. There's certainly plenty of pilots that could speak more eloquently on that, but that is, in a general sense, those are all the factors that go into a flight planning effort.
Yeah. And when somebody makes a flight plan, it can be different quite often. And so depending on the weather, depending on the day, all sorts of things. And so there isn't one answer for all of this, is there?
Mayor, Councilmember, correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So,
It depends. As an example, in Chandler, it gets very hot during the summer. And so that has a significant impact in terms of the aircraft capabilities as far as takeoff. Cooler weather, it's colder air, general lift. So it definitely is seasonal. And one of the many factors that go into flight planning.
yeah, and from the consultant, there's some discussion about non-standard climb rates for aircraft. What is that?
The Mayor, Councilmember, the non-standard climb rates, when pilots are planning their departures, they're assuming a certain climb rate at a certain degree, depending on the aircraft capability. A non-standard climb rate could be higher, and to clear, the aircraft may take on less fuel, less cargo. Pilots generally have a extremely high regard for safety because the stakes are incredibly high. And when pilots are going through their calculations, safety is the top priority, and everything else in terms of weight balance is all factored into a safe departure and safe arrival.
I'm going to skip to number 3, reduction in usable runway length through the application of declared distances.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds to me like even if you had 6,700 feet, it might not be that relevant given the fact that there might be a structure that may contribute to you having to say, we can't use the whole runway, we can only use it up to this point, given our load factor and our aircraft and our fuel and the weather. Is that true?
Mayor, Councilmember, that is generally correct. The declared distances where that gets into the published data for the runway, you can have, as an example, 6,000 feet of pavement, but published, only a portion of that is usable. And so that may mean there's a takeoff threshold at 5,550 feet, whereas the remainder of the pavement may be only available for landings at the opposite end. So it really is, it's a little bit more than stripes on pavement. They do have meanings. And depending on how they're configured, that certainly would weigh into the pilot's calculations in terms of determining the amount of pavement that's available.
Well, I'm sure we could talk for hours, but I thank you for your answers, and we'll move on. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Is the applicant here? We get your name and address for the record?
Charles Humano for the record, P.O. Box 1833, Tempe, Arizona. We could talk for hours as well, but we're going to try not to do that. I have with me today Justin Riggs and his family, both his close family and then his larger family. You can see there are a number of blue shirts in the crowd today representing Solid Cabinetry. Solid Cabinetry is a family-owned business. Justin Riggs, you probably all recognize the Riggs family name. It is on any number of signs, even when there aren't campaigns here in Chandler. It's an old family name, and Justin's proud to be part of that family. In fact, for many years, Justin and his family have worked hard to bring their business back to Chandler. They're currently in Tempe, and they've outgrown their facility, and they have worked hard to find a piece of land that would work for their company. Their company builds, manufactures, and distributes wholesale cabinetry throughout not just the valley, but throughout the Southwest and further. And they have an opportunity to bring 400 good jobs here to Chandler. And you can see many of the people that work here, that are here tonight, are people that work for Solid Cabinetry. And I think it's a strong show of the quality of the jobs that have an opportunity to come to Chandler, that people are willing to take a Monday night and come here and stand with their company to be here. And so our goal has been all along to find a home in Chandler for Solid. And we found a place that would work well. We thought for any number of reasons. The location is good for us because Chandler, of course, we all know, is sort of in the center of the valley. And it has quick access to all parts of the valley, but also parts away from the valley. We were going to be at the end of a runway, and we knew that that would have some challenges, but not for us, because we're not afraid of the sound. We build cabinetry, and so the sound for us seemed to be a pretty good use. As Mr. Mayo suggested earlier, light industrial is often a good use for this kind of land, and we thought it would be great. Notwithstanding the plan that you saw earlier shows the space as open space, it in fact is not. For 30 years, it's been owned by partnership, and one of the original owners is here to speak to you tonight to talk about their relationship, not just with Chandler, but also the Chandler Air Park area. As Mr. Mayo suggested earlier, this is a unique site. The odd shape of the site is in fact designed based on the progress of the airport over the years. I'll try to go into that in more detail. I'm going to skip some of the slides because some of those things Mr. Mayo, who always does a very thorough job in his presentation, has already covered. But I'm happy to go back and answer questions. And I know there are people on both sides who'd like to speak. And Mr. Mayor, I get the sense that I have an opportunity to respond after that as well. So I'll leave some of the points that people might make for later, and I'll address them then. This is the building we'd like to build. We've gone through a number of renditions to get here. We've worked hard with your staff, your consultants, and others to find a building that we think allows us to be in the Chandler area and allows the airport to continue to grow. And specifically, all of our efforts have been designed with the known goal of the city to eventually expand, lots of process to get there, but to 5,550 feet. And so we have worked hard to make sure that nothing we do impedes the ability to do that. This is the building we'd like to build. It's a beautiful building, we think, would sit well along Germain Road. A lot of traffic, doesn't have anything to do with the airport, so it's important that we face it and do it attractively, and we think we've done that. Again, it's 12 feet shorter than the building we thought we could build and wanted to build, but we made compromises to make sure that what we do helps everyone achieve their goals. We worked from the very beginning knowing there'd be concern about the airport. So we brought on a retired FAA air traffic controller who helped us examine the process, look at what would be problematic, and we built a building, moved it as far in, as close to Germain as we could, moved things as far away from the runway as we could.
Charles?
Yes, sir.
The applicant, if they'd like to sit, I could have the staff move. There's no need for you guys to have to stand for the whole presentation. You'll be there.
Well, they're happy to sit, they're happy to stand. What they really want to do is be able to work in Chandler. So however that works.
No good deed goes unpunished. But we want them to feel very comfortable at the Chandler City Council meeting.
I think that the great thing about Chandler is everybody wants to be here. We've known that for a long time. We didn't realize until recent council meetings how many people also wanted to be at the council meetings, but that seems quite popular these days.
True.
Following our FAA consultant, we knew it was important from the city to get our FAA letter of determination of no hazard, and we received that. In fact, at the time, we were told that was the thing that Chandler really wanted. If we had that, we'd be okay. And that came back, and there's been some question about what that entailed. And you hired a consultant, we hired a consultant, and we also had lots of discussion with the FAA itself. But following the FAA's determination, you brought forth your own consultant, and that consultant took a more conservative approach. The FAA, as recently as today, has said we didn't need to go as a community and get a consultant. They view themselves as the foremost experts in aviation safety around the world. And they take into consideration when they make their determinations all the city's plans, all the building plans, and they have in this case too. But we understand the airport expansion is important. And so when we found out that your consultant would like us to do more, we took that seriously. We didn't have a lot of time, but we, and Ben is here somewhere in the back, spent quite a bit of time designing a very unusual building. Generally speaking, with industrial buildings, you build a tilt-up building, it has a big parapet, you put all the equipment on the roof, and you don't have to do things like you might in your house, which is include air conditioning ducts and other things. That equipment all stays on the roof. It's less expensive that way. That's why almost every light industrial building works that way. In this case, one of the things that Ben and his team at LGE did was immediately study a way to do it differently. We reduced it by 12 feet. Most of the equipment now comes inside as opposed to on the roof. And this causes some limitations to the building, but Justin wants to be in Chandler, and so he was willing to make those sacrifices, both in terms of cost and in terms of usability of the building. So now we have a building that is significantly less tall and outside of even your more conservative evaluation of safety than the FAA. Again, the FAA made a very clear determination that the building that we had proposed at 12 feet taller, at 42 feet, was safe, that wouldn't impede your ability to follow the 2016 plan. Why did we end up with 5,550 feet? I'm going to run through this quickly. I think a couple of questions sort of alluded to it. The 2000 plan was 6,800 feet. I think the roadway was ultimately realigned to adjust that. I think you may hear from the original property owner some of the history behind that, but ultimately that didn't go through. So there was a look at 5,500 or 5,700 feet. That was also rejected. We ended up with the current ALP, which the council voted on about a year ago for 5,550 feet. So we have always known that that was a potential goal. It would need voter approval and other things, but we understood that was a goal of the city. And so we designed a building that would allow you to have your zone. And it's not coincidental that this exhibit occurs. This exhibit is actually why the property line is where it is. The property line was designed with the idea in mind that it might be a 5,550-foot runway. That's why the property line ends at exactly the amount of property you would need to build that runway. We've done a number of exhibits, and I'm happy to talk in more detail about why the building fits in. But ultimately, this comes from your own recommendation from an earlier staff report that the 5,550-foot runway requires no need for additional land acquisition. Even today, we spoke with the FAA, and they have reviewed the consultant's initial report and find that the additional space is unnecessary. But I want to talk about that report. Particular, Councilman Rowe, you mentioned about the report. And I think what's really important to articulate is the report that you read is the original building. It's the building that's 42 feet, not the one that's 30 feet. We took that report, although we disagreed with its necessity, we took it seriously. And our team went back immediately and redesigned the building. At significant cost to Justin and significant time to LGE. But we did it so that we would purposely fall outside of that zone, the zone that the consultant said might cause you trouble down the road. And in fact, it's funny, you joke about being able to stand or sit. We stood in a meeting with your consultants, and we stood there until we all came to agreement that the building we're proposing today didn't cause additional concern for the consultants. And that's why you don't have a report today that says the consultants have concern, because they don't. And we designed the building specifically so that they wouldn't. You can see here, we basically took a look to see where the obstructions would be. I do want to make one additional point. I know there are lots of people to speak, and we'll have an opportunity to respond. The exhibit that you see here today shows the area where a building would be permissible. It doesn't necessarily show where the building would be. The building, particularly the roof-mounted equipment, we're going to move that as far out of the way as possible. Now, we don't have construction documents at this point in time, nor would we normally. And so we figured out what the biggest envelope we could have would be to make sure that we were completely 100% out of the zone that your consultants were concerned about. The staff was concerned about that too, and they've added a stipulation to your staff report, making sure that the building that we build will be within the envelope that even your consultants agree does not cause you a problem expanding the airport to 5,550 feet. To the extent that we can make it smaller, that we can move the roof equipment in, well, we're going to do that. We're going to do that for two reasons. One, obviously we've been through this process, we know that's important. And two, frankly, the less equipment that we have to screen, the smaller the area that we screen it, the less money we'll spend screening it, and so that's good for us too. I know there are lots of folks who want to speak here tonight, so I think I'll reserve the remainder of my time for questions both from the council and to respond to people who come to speak.
Questions of the applicant? Okay. We do have some speakers here on both sides of the issue. We'll start with those opposed. We'll let them speak first, then we'll go to those in support. We did have, we ended up with 6 speakers that will speak in opposition. The first 2, Tom Galvin and David Sperling, will get 6 minutes. The rest will be 3 minutes. Steve Smith, Jim Simons, Neil Jones, Phil Jossie. I did get some cards here that yielded time, and I do appreciate folks getting a few speakers to do this. We did have cards in opposition submitted by Terry Gittes, Doug Heaton, Jeff Dubeck, Brett Gladish, Patty Moore, Denny Moore, Anson Gladish, as well as Richard Dwyer, Bonnie Sperling, Mary Lee Hoffman, Mike Rohr, Michael Sperling, Ann Simons, Josh Clark, Brett Gladish, Kawar Azad, Steve Bowling, and Brian Hankins. So with that, clerk, set the clock for 6 minutes for the first 2. Ask the speakers be respectful of the time so that we can get all of the speakers in. And with that, we'll turn it over to Tom Galvin. We can get your name and address for the record.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I am Thomas Galvin with Rose Law Group on behalf of a variety of business interests located within the Chandler Air Park. The reason why we're here tonight, ironically, is not because of a cabinet factory or light industrial use. We're here tonight to discuss the future and the economic vitality of our Chandler Airport. We only have one airport in Chandler. We can have a cabinet factory, we can have light industrial uses all over the city of Chandler, but we only have one airport. The reason why Germain Road was moved in the configuration that you saw tonight in the presentation was for an airport, not for a cabinet factory. I'm going to talk to you tonight about what I think is an incomplete application from the applicant. I'm also going to talk to you tonight about the city's general plan, the airport plan, and our equally but very important airport. As you've heard before in a previous meeting last month with Chris from the airport, it generates $100 million of economic activity per year. It's responsible for thousands of jobs. It has 200,000 operations per year. Now, several of the council members tonight, Mr. Stewart, Mr. Wang, Mr. Harkey, you asked some questions of staff, and I want to commend staff for doing a terrific job in their presentation and their assessment of the project. However, light industrial, he said, Kevin said from staff, that this will be the least amount of jobs possible at that site. Well, we just heard the applicant say there could be up to 400 jobs. So we have to think about that economy right there as well. The FAA report, that was not, as you can see from your city's consultant, the FAA report was not an endorsement of this project. That no hazard statement was not an endorsement of the project. The FAA has not endorsed the project. I would not call that an actual endorsement. And we heard tonight that Kaufman Consultants have now signed off on the project. Well, we haven't seen a memo from that. We have seen a memo that was just dated a couple of weeks ago, October 18th, that raised serious concerns about this application. But we have not seen a memo signing off on that. And I think what the issue here tonight is we don't want to put the cart in front of the horse. We have a 20-year-old airport plan. It's outdated. I think what we need to do is to do the plan first, to have stakeholders come to a table, all of us to talk about the future economic vitality of the airport, and then afterwards we can determine whether or not a cabinet factory would be good. We've heard tonight about the length of the runways. It's true. Glendale, Buckeye, Falcon Field, and Mesa all have longer runways. We know there's going to be growing demand for Chandler Airport. We know that Chandler Airport is the 15th busiest general aviation airport in the country. We know that Chandler Airport serves markets throughout the western United States. We don't want to cut off the airport at the knees, and we don't want to do so by approving a project that we have serious concerns about, questions about tonight, before we have an updated airport plan. Here is the Chandler Airport plan. In 1998, it was probably written and saved on a floppy disk on a computer. That's how outdated it is. But we also have the general plan. And the general plan, Mr. Stewart, you asked, why was it zoned for open space? It's in the report here tonight. It was zoned for open space in case of any emergency incidents. And that's why they wanted open space outside of the airport. The airport is mentioned prominently in the city's general plan. And in fact, the city's general plan talks about the importance of the airport. There's a section here on page 20. I don't know if you have the general plan in front of you. It says area plans have historically played an important role in Chandler's planning efforts. These plans must be referred to in determining development guidance on specific parcels that fall within an area plan. Page 32, Chandler Airport is specifically mentioned. The area surrounding the Chandler Municipal Airport attracts a mix of land uses, including aviation-related businesses, business parks, retail, hotels, and other amenities. The Airpark Area Plan provides guidance for development within the Chandler Airport growth area. This proposed application is within the Chandler Airport Area Plan. This plan covers 9 square miles around the Chandler Municipal Airport, and it's intended to protect employment opportunities and ensure land use compatibility with the airport. Ask yourselves, is this land use compatibility with the airport? Then on page 35 of the general plan, as you can see here, there's a variety of bullet points that specifically address how important this airport is. And sitting behind me tonight are gentlemen and women who want to save the airport. They are very concerned about the future of this airport. We have a $100 million entity at stake. I don't think we should be rushing through in one meeting and making a decision when there's a lot here at stake. Section 1.2.3C, Chandler Airport Policies, create an economic business public relations campaign that articulates the airpark's long-term vision as a pivotal asset to attract major employers. D, focus on attracting a major employer to the Chandler Municipal Airport and an air park that will act as an anchor and attract additional employers. E, make the airport a point of interest and destination for
Mr.
adults
Galvin,
and children.
I'm going to give you 30 seconds
Okay.
to wrap.
So my point is that we should not be rushing this project. There's a lot here that needs to be discussed, including an outdated plan, a general plan that supports the airport, and I think what we need to do is to continue this item, have everyone convene with the stakeholders, talk about getting an airport plan updated instead of running on a 20-year-old plan with a one-off amendment, and then we can address the application tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Galvin. David Sperling, can you get your name and address for the record?
Thank you. My name is David Sperling. I live at 2730 South Pleasant Place with my wife and children in Chandler. This is in Carino Estates, immediately adjacent to the air park area plan, air park area. I'm going to present a solution where all parties, the present landowner, the cabinet maker, and the city can win. But first, I'm going to point out why you should not pass this resolution. I'm a subject matter expert on airports and airport development, and I've passed out my resume to each of you to take a look at. In May of this year, at the request of Jim Harris of Kaufman Associates, who you have heard about this evening as your expert airport consultant, I gave a presentation at the American Association of Airport Executives annual conference in San Diego on the subject of keeping your airport competitive in the challenging general aviation environment. The solution I will offer tonight aligns very well with that presentation. In my role as a city airport commissioner, which by the way I did not seek but was asked to fulfill by city leadership, I have continuously advocated to find a conflict with airport uses regarding rezoning actions that are not in alignment with proposed land uses recommended in the Chandler Air Park Area Plan, as the cumulative impacts of unintended consequences could negatively impact other development opportunities, not only in the air park area, but throughout Chandler, as well as in the Price Road corridor. I've heard that members of this council discount Airport Commission's recommendations as, well, they vote no on every request. Well, no matter my position against any other rezoning case, including the Madison Park rezoning application on tonight's agenda, which was passed on consent, I've never declared an emergency. I've never made the phone calls, sent the emails, met with city manager or the assistant city manager, nor come before this body to argue that the sky is falling. There is a reason we're here tonight. This case is different. This case, due to the location of the site immediately adjacent to the airport boundary and on the runway's extended center line, has the potential to negatively affect the economic deliverance of the Chandler Airport expected by the citizenry by virtue of operating the airport through an enterprise fund. I would like to talk briefly about the Chandler Air Park Area Plan. First, with regard to the information contained in your briefing packet that has been presented to you by staff as it relates to the area plan, staff states the subject site was designated as parks and open space to allow for expansion of the runway. Policy 6.3 of the Air Park Area Plan makes no such assertion about the runway length. It states that the city shall use open space as a means of protecting the airport runway and taxiway safety zones from encroachment by incompatible development. The RPZ designated by the FAA is not an end-all and be-all of flight safety. Airport owners are free and encouraged to consider additional safety controls through various land use designations such as parks and open space, and has been in place since the inception of the Chandler Air Park Area Plan. In fact, Germain Road, as was discussed, was realigned specifically to provide this open space. City planners and leaders should be commended regarding their foresight on that issue. The briefing memo also states that the city has had numerous opportunities to acquire the property for future expansion. City staff can produce no such documentation of any such offer or transaction. In fact, the planning context for the airport, or in the airpark area plan, implies that the area plan, airport master plan, airport layout plan, capital improvement program, and city's general plan should be in alignment to provide consistency and continuity to leaders so there is clear direction for decision making. None of the aforementioned plans are in alignment, none of them. The airport master plan is from 2010, the airpark area plan 98, the general plan 2016, and the airport layout plan also 2016. And although the airport master plan was updated in 2010, the ALP had not been approved and the 2000 ALP remained in effect. The plans I just mentioned represent varied development recommendations, which should be based on analysis and careful thought regarding the results, but are not. The 2016 airport layout plan specifically is not based on any analysis or examination of relevant data. There are three components that are used to define the appropriate runway length at an airport: aviation forecasts of activity, determination of the airport's design aircraft, and a runway length analysis based on the previous two items. None of this was completed. What the applicant's attorney left off of his slide about the history of airport planning at Chandler is that all of the figures shown show the current ALP. Of all the figures shown, the current airport layout plan runway length is the only one on that sheet that was not supported by any analysis. None, no analysis. I have asked city staff in the FAA, and they shrug their shoulders and give me a wide-eyed look. They can't explain why there was no analysis.
Going to have to wrap up.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So the solution I offer tonight is that the programmed airport planning exercises that are programmed for 2019, the airport master plan, the airport layout plan update, and the airpark area plan allowed to be moved forward and inform this decision. And the solution is that the land be shown to be acquired by the city, as had been the case for 20 years on previous documents. We can get federal funding for that if it's on the airport layout plan at 95%, so the citizens can pay 5 cents on the dollar. The landowner is made happy. We can engage the city's economic development director and department and find a home for solid cabinets, which is a good project for Chandler, just not in that slot. And the city can link it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Smith. Clock to 3 minutes. City Clerk. Steve Smith, will you get your name and address for the record?
Mayor Tibsherini, Vice Mayor Lopez, council members. My name is Steve Smith, and I live at 3885 East Carob Drive in Gilbert, Arizona. For the past 20 years, I've worked at Chandler Area Service at the Chandler Municipal Airport. And I'm speaking to you tonight for the very great concern I have for the solid cabinetry project. Not over concern of the company or the business and the jobs that they can provide, but simply where that business, where they're going to provide that business and those jobs. There's specifically two areas that I'd like to touch on. First, the Chandler Airport is operated as an enterprise zone, which means it's designed to be primarily self-sufficient. Currently, the city of Chandler subsidizes the airport at an average of approximately $350,000 per year over the last 4 years. If the airport were allowed to grow and develop, as it was designed to do in order to meet aviation demand, we would have increased air traffic. That would come, and with that would come more fuel sales, which means more fuel flow fees for the city of Chandler. With the increased growth and development, we would be able to attract more businesses. Businesses like Wingspan, which only days ago submitted plans to start construction on their project. Currently, of the revenue generated at the airport, or by the airport, 28% of that comes from fuel sales and fuel flow fees. 19% comes from fixed leases. That is 47%, almost half of the revenue generated by the airport. Imagine if you voted for the airport and in favor of it and allowed it to grow and develop, you would easily be able to generate more than the $350,000 subsidy that you're currently paying out of the general fund. That money could go back into the city of Chandler. It could go back to the citizens of Chandler. How can you tell the citizens of this community that you're going to deny them that kind of fiscal responsibility? Second, back in 2006, Germain Road was rerouted at a cost of hundreds of thousands of dollars, specifically to protect the space around the airport and allow for future planning, flexibility, and aviation demand. Part of that planning and flexibility was to provide the possibility of a longer runway. Not that the possibility of a longer runway would bring larger jet traffic to Chandler, but simply to allow the jets which currently come to Chandler now to come and go during the summer months. The extreme high temperatures that we get here in the summer greatly reduce the efficiency of all aircraft, which means that they cannot carry the required fuel load to get to their final destinations. And no business that can afford a jet to fly their executives is willing to make a stop along the way to get fuel. They simply leave from an airport that will allow them to get where they need to go without stopping. Which means that Chandler misses out on the economic impact of those companies that those companies would provide. Which brings us to the question of why would you consider putting a building in an area?
Steve, I'm going to ask you to please wrap up.
All right, I will. Where you spent money to keep that space open. For those reasons and a host of others, I would urge you to vote no on this project, or at least continue it until you receive the airport studies that the city has already planned for. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jim Simons, we get your name and address for the record?
Mayor, council members, I am Jim Simons. My wife and I have owned the property at 6130 South White Place in Chandler since 2005. I am a member of the Airport and Transportation Commissions, but today I'm speaking to you as a Chandler resident who happens to believe that the airport, the Chandler Airport, is a unique asset that the city should take advantage of. As a senior U.S. Navy pilot, I had 2 commands in which I learned a lot about airports and complex planning. I was the commanding officer of a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier and the commander of a Navy region, in which I was the admiral responsible for 4 major Navy bases. Especially in that last job, I learned the importance of infrastructure planning. It's a high-risk business, and it requires well-thought-out vision, in-depth analysis, and an appropriate strategy to ensure we get it right. I oppose the proposed action to construct a building just 2,000 feet off the end of the runway because it is not part of a vision, and there has been no holistic analysis of its impacts on the airport. And obviously, as a pilot, I immediately alert on such a proposal, which can only serve to decrease the safety of operations and encroach on the airport environment. You've already budgeted to do the long-term analysis that's required, as we've said here tonight. This will be the opportunity to get the vision right for the airport and the air park, and to see the business case analysis for the options the city may have. It is in your interest to see that analysis before considering a proposal like this one. At best, approving it now is a piecemeal approach to planning. At worst, putting a building at the very critical spot will limit any flexibility this or future councils may enjoy. Now, there are several issues being debated around the proposal that serve to distract from what should be your main focus, that being proper planning. One of those distractors, as I've heard said, is that the FAA, quote, approved this project, unquote. The FAA issues a determination of hazard or no hazard only for proposals submitted to them. They do not approve anything. And they do not supplant those responsible for real land use planning. That is left up to you. Banking on the FAA determination is not a proper substitute for real planning. And just like the FAA issue, there are other distracting issues that have been discussed by previous speakers that are either past history or of short-term importance. If you desire, you could hang your hat on one or more of those issues to justify making a short-sighted decision and approve this project.
Jim, if we could have you wrap up.
The people of Chandler elected you to take the long view, to oversee a planning process that includes a big picture vision, in-depth analysis, and an appropriate strategy to get to a better future. Please take that road, vote no on this project, or continue it until you have the analysis in your hand. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Neil Jones. Neil, if we can get your name and address for the record.
My name is Neil Jones. My address is 2401 South Heliport Way in Chandler, 85286. Council, I thank you tonight for the opportunity to speak to you. Like I said, my name is Neil Jones. I'm a native of Chandler, a current Chandler resident, and a stakeholder and business owner at the Chandler Airport for the past 25 years. I began working and flying at the Chandler Airport while in high school in 1977. I am pro-Chandler, pro-business, and I am pro-solid cabinetry. I respect their success, and I would be the first one to welcome them to Chandler. My issue here is about land use. It's not about my fellow business operator. With that said, I'm here to respectfully ask you to vote no on Resolution 5197. Chandler City leaders decided 71 years ago to commit to developing an airport at the current airport location. Since then, tens of millions of federal dollars, state dollars, and city dollars have been invested in this City of Chandler asset, not to mention the hard work and millions more dollars invested at the airport by its existing stakeholders. Respectfully, and in my humble opinion, over the last 30 years, our Chandler Municipal Airport has in many ways been stuck in time and stagnated. It has suffered from an intense lack of vision, a lack of appreciation, and neglect from our city leaders. In the 25 years I have been in business, the City of Chandler has continued to grow and prosper into a 4.5-star suburban city that we are all proud of, and I am specifically proud to call my home. I'm proud to say that I grew up here and have watched all that growth. But the airport, unfortunately, has stagnated at about 1 to 1.5 stars, and it continues to fall far below its potential. Even so, our airport still generates about $110 million of economic impact annually, and it is still ripe with potential to grow and to develop into much more of an economic generator and into an airport that more closely represents the great city that it serves. However, a yes vote on 5197 will have a serious and permanent derogatory effect on the health, potential growth, economic capacity, flexibility, and development of our airport asset. A yes vote will produce a permanent monument in the way of a 250,000 square foot building.
Neil, I'm going to ask you to wrap up.
Right off the end of our airport's main runway. That will say to every future pilot, business owner, potential developer, and potential stakeholder that the city's leadership is not interested in the future of the Chandler Airport. It also says to the current stakeholders, businesses, and users of the airport that our current leadership is not willing to protect their investment on the airport or the tens of millions invested by taxpayers to develop this airport over the last 7 decades.
Thank you.
So we're respectfully asking for your help and your no vote tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Phil Jossie. We get your name and address for the record.
Yes. Mayor, council members, my name is Philip Josie, 4163 East Scorpio Place, Chandler, Arizona, 85249. The problem with being last is most everything's been said. And I strongly support what Neil just went through, but I would like to come at it from maybe a little different perspective. I'm a pilot, I'm a flight instructor, and I flew over that site tonight, a couple of hours ago. All of the studies that are accumulated or have been accumulated, they assume that everything is working perfectly. There's no emergency. How many times have you heard about an emergency in an airplane? A week ago, one of the most recent 737 MAXs, highly technological aircraft, flies off the end of a runway, 13 minutes later flies into the ocean. 189 people. So I'm a flight instructor, and I know that more than 50% of the accidents and incidents on airports are in the takeoff and the landing phase of flight. So if I lose an engine on this runway, I'm going to be staring that building right in the face. And I can almost guarantee you that there will be somebody going to the side of that building. It happens. It happens. And so as a flight instructor and a pilot, and I also work on the airport, we lease space out there, to me it's a safety issue. And I'm all for solid cabinetry too. I mean, I'm about economic development. I was in the banking industry 40 years. I get that. But do we have to have it at the end of the runway? saw the picture up there, the end of that runway is not very far. And if you lose an engine on takeoff, you're going down. You appreciate your questions, Councilman Rowe. Weight and balance is huge. There are aircraft that take off from this runway today. They fly to Scottsdale, they get fuel, and then they go to where they're going because they can't get off this runway. So I'll finish with economic development. If we want this airport to be developed on both sides to where we have thousands of jobs, we're not Scottsdale, but the Scottsdale Air Park has 53,000 jobs in that air park. They have an 8,000-foot runway. We can't have that. We won't ever be Scottsdale. But we can be Chandler, and we can have tons of economic development along that, generating millions and millions of dollars if we just deal with it. So I support the planning. Step back. Let's do some more planning. Let's see what we can do to make this work for everybody. There is a 20-acre site on the south side of the airport that would accommodate the cabinetry as near as I know. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Phil.
Make these notes, and then I don't.
Next speakers will be in support of the project. They've selected a number of speakers, as I did with the opposition. I will read the names of the folks that showed up in support of the project tonight that aren't speaking. We have Patrick Hobson, Missy Soldner, Val Morganese, excuse me if I didn't pronounce that right, Seth Vieira, Mike Eckamper, Robert Bianchi, Jason Yelverton, Steve Clutter, Charles Harkin, Ken Swain, Michelle Carlson, Barani McDuffie, Charles Pilcher, Mike Morrow, Oscar, can't read your last name, Oscar, David Liebert, Fidel Estudio, Aaron D'Angela, Kevin Liebert, Michael Figueroa, Patty Figueroa, Tyson Wilbounce, Dorel Parashevo, Maria Vulture, Andrea Rodello, Brittany Corbett, Lynn Samal, Matt Arnold, Scott Moser, Ben McCrae, Gabriel Uribe, Something Lane, Mitchell Love, Ed Nellander, Mary Nellander, Grayson Wynn, Ashley Fisher, Steele Hollows, Vanessa Fisher, Craig Riggs, Laura Matthews, Robert Breinholt, Christine Sherwood, Mark Sherwood, April Wilbank, Justin Riggs, William Krieger, can't read this one, Tyler Brady, Hannah, Michelle Brady, Preston Brady, Ron Brady, Gary Kenyon, Corey Brayholt, Haley Brayholt, Leroy Brayholt, John Bradshaw, William Smonota, Oscar Ramos, Angela Westbrooks, James Westbrooks, Jonathan.
Mayor, if it's better to have everybody stand so you don't have to read them the record, be happy to stipulate.
I know a lot of them left because the meeting's gone on, but if you're here in support of the case, please stand then. There was about 20 more cards here. Okay, thank you. So we do have some speakers that do want to speak on this. We'll start with Mr. Denny Barney. 3 minutes, City Clerk, for all of their speakers.
Mayor Tipsarani, members of the council, it's good to be here this evening. My name is Denny Barney, 4915 East Baseline Road. These are interesting meetings. You've got a hard decision to make. You've got a sea of blue shirts and a lot of name tags or stickers with Save Our Airport. I have friends on both sides of this issue. It's complex. I would suggest that the airport's important, even vital to Chandler. It's part of the critical infrastructure. I don't think anybody would argue otherwise. I think that would be insincere and disingenuous. However, in spite of all these complex issues, many of which we've heard about tonight, many of which went over my head, I'll be honest if I were suggesting that. I don't think that a no vote changes the character of this airport at its ultimate destiny. At 5550, the airport's going to be a magnificent asset of this community, but it's still going to be a runway of 5550. It's not going to be Scottsdale Air Park. It's not going to be Gateway, which is 12 miles away with 3 runways that are around 10,000 feet, but it's going to be awesome. I think you've worked hard to make it so. That being said, a no vote doesn't change the character of that ultimate outcome. But a no vote, I think, looks past some pretty simple issues at the same time. I think there's a way to view this in a very non-complex way, and that is, what can we do to protect the airport and the businesses? What can we do to protect private property rights? And that's a big issue, bigger than probably anything that's been said tonight. And third, what can we do to bring more jobs to this vibrant jobs economy in Chandler? Chandler is a leader in the East Valley and in the region. I know that definitively, both where I serve in elected office and where I volunteer my time with the East Valley Partnership. I believe in Chandler. That being said, I'm not a subject matter expert on airports, but I'm a subject matter on finding compromise to complex problems. I think before you tonight is a solution, a compromise solution that does just that. You've got an applicant that's agreed to lower a building height. You've got a lot of people that have weighed in. You've got this ALP of 5550. Frankly, I don't know that the airport even needs to get to that. The goal is to be in the spirit of good business and sweet competition with our neighbors. Falcon Field's 5,100 feet. They're not going to grow any bigger than that. They handle a lot of traffic, including jets. A team of experts have found a compromise solution, and I think that it's appropriate that you would consider that. I think it balances those 3 issues, and everybody wins. And I'm here in support of solid cabinets and supporting property rights and supporting protecting this airport, at the same time balancing those critical issues and bringing more jobs to Chandler. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. Terry Kimball. If we can get your name and address for the record.
Mayor and Council, I'm Terry Kimball. I am the President CEO of the Chandler Chamber, as well as I live in close proximity to the airport. I love the sound of the airplanes going over my house. So I'm one of those residents that is truly for the airport as an economic development tool. The Chandler Chamber of Commerce is the 3rd largest chamber in the state. We represent over 170,000 employees here in Chandler. Solid Cabinetry is a quality manufacturer that helps to diverse our businesses here in Chandler. And I think that that's really an important component. It is essential for the city of Chandler to bring forth the venues that will create jobs and feed our economy throughout our city, and especially in the airport area. I can tell you there are many businesses here I am a true champion for that have spoke already tonight that may be on the opposite side. But that airport area is a gem here in our community. I want to share with you a couple of information that our local airport administrator pointed out. It was a presentation to our a group of local community leaders. The airport is a public investment, and that's really important. It provides higher skilled jobs for Chandler residents, it attracts businesses and new investment in Chandler, and it generates tax revenue. The airport's role, Councilmember Wong, I know that you had asked how many different airports that there are. This is a reliever airport, and I think just within the immediate area of what I'm counting on this map, there's probably 6 of those in that area. I know that we're either 13th to 15th busiest airport. That begs to, it depends on when they take those numbers. The airport is really important. It is the anchor to Chandler Airport, which is, according to this presentation, is the 2nd largest employment center in Chandler. It's one of the busiest contract control towers in the United States, and the tower is owned and maintained in Chandler. We talked about the operating budget, which is important. We talked about the sales tax, fuels, and so forth. One of the things that really stood out to me was the top priorities. Number 1 was a safety first. In 2016, they had about 221,000 operations, which was an increase over the previous year. 2017, they had 194,224 operations, which was a decrease of about 12.2%. Balancing the busiest airport with neighboring residents. The noise program, they do a great job. The number 2 priority is growth. They do a great job on the noise program and also with compatible uses. When you take a look at an airport manufacturing area, that's important. Right now it creates about 800 total jobs, 109 million. With that particular component, adding additional revenue, this particular company, adding those 400 jobs, will generate about another, just in payroll taxes, about another 15 million. That is a huge statement on where we can move. I urge council this evening to do 2 things. Number 1, take the airport serious. Let's update that plan. We can't be the dinosaur in the desert. We have to be progressive. And number 2, I really urge you to embrace this business and their employees. They want to be here in Chandler. Let's welcome them with open arms and vote yes. Thank you.
Thank you. John Steitler. If we can get your name and address.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, thank you for listening to me. I apologize for just a second. One of the problems of getting old, besides breaking your hip, is your mind tends to wander. So if I wander off on this, I'll apologize in advance and flash a red light. I'm here because about 31 years ago, I bought Peterson Farms. Peterson Farms, as you know, is all of the land that encompasses the airport. So this 19 acres is the last of 480 acres that we have developed with the city of Chandler on Peterson Farms. This is not complex. This has been studied to death. This is the 4th council I've appeared before, because on 4 zoning cases, you have turned us down. All with the same thing, safety, study it more. The reason is very simple. Back when Chandler came to us and wanted us to do everything to make sure that Vestar made sure 1/3 of that cornerstone center was put in the city of Chandler, not your neighbors. You had to do something with the airport, you know that. I gave the land for Germain to the city of Chandler. I didn't charge you for it, I gave it to you. And these people talk about, like as they were there, I was there. And the runway was supposed to end there. The problem that you have is you have a theater, Harkins Theater, right on the other side of Germain. So it's impossible for you to go much past what you have right now. What you have is what you had. This is a program that should have been done 10 years ago when you wanted that shopping center, not tonight. What you have tonight is one little piece of land that no one will touch It will not bother the airport at all. It's not going to be major at all. It doesn't hurt the city at all. And the funny thing about it is, when we bought the land 30 years ago, we gave the city $100,000 to form the Airport Industrial Council, and I was the first president for 10 years. So it's my own child that's, I guess, biting me. It's very simple. It's very simple. If you want to expand the airport, buy the land. If you don't want to expand it, and that was the decision you made when Vestar came in and built the shopping center, then let me sell the land. I congratulate the Riggs family. They are the best buyer you could possibly ever have. They love Chandler. They've gone through every hoop in the world to make sure it's safe, to meet every requirement that you have. You're never going to find a better buyer. If you turn them down, then the answer is you don't want anything there, nothing. So buy the land. It's real simple. You bought it from me. If you remember, there's a little triangle on that piece. That was the first part of my land you bought from me 27 years ago. You were going to buy the rest of the land, and it didn't. And I understand that. So all I ask is for 30 years, make up your mind. Either give these people, you're never going to have, ever going to have a better applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Seitler. Heidi Spires. Can we get your name and address for the record?
Heidi Spears. I have a home in Escrow, 1791 East Astor Place. About a year ago, when Solid Cabinetry was looking at this property, my husband and I started looking for a home, chose Chandler, which we thought would be amazing to be right around the corner from work. Solid Cabinetry is an amazing place to work. It's an extended family of my family. The Riggs family is amazing. I love them. I'm proud to be an employee of Solid Cabinetry. I've been there for a little over 5 years and really look forward to the opportunity to living and working and being part of the great Chandler community.
Thank you. Roger Spears. Any relation? Good.
Good evening. Yeah, I think it was intentional. I was placed after my wife. She's gorgeous. I'm not. It's one of those opposition in all things things. Like she said so eloquently, we purchased a home on 1791 East Astor, 85286, and are very excited to become residents of Chandler. We love Gilbert, but we're ready to move on to Chandler. But I agree with the landowner. I think this thing has been evaluated and evaluated and evaluated. I don't know how many times you reevaluate something before you make a decision. I've watched this company grow for 5 years. It's tripled in size. It's been one of the most, I work for Pfizer Laboratories, the largest pharmaceutical company. They're so impressive to me. But to watch this small company do what it's done in such a short period of time is just magnificent. And I think it would be an honor for the city to have such a quality caliber company as this be part of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Tracy Ann Lewis. No, Lemons. Okay. Kelsey Marks. There's Kelsey Marks.
Hi, I've worked for Solid Cabinetry for about 3.5 years now. I can say that as an employee, they've treated me better than any company that I've ever worked for. I live in Chandler. My family lives in Chandler. It would be an honor to come work here as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Sergio Cardenas. We
Yeah,
get you.
I think the evening is getting long. I think that we yield the remainder of our speakers. I
He
think
was the
we've
last one.
made our
Okay.
points.
Thank you.
If I might?
Yes.
Thank you. You know, one of the great things about Chandler is everybody cares about it, and we've seen that here tonight. Both sides care passionately about what they're here to speak about. But there are a number of issues that I think we'd really like to focus on. Mr. Barney brought up a really good point. The city doesn't own this land. It's never owned this land. And yet it has an opportunity to make a decision on this land. What this land would allow for today is an agricultural use or single-family homes. That's what it's owned for today. Those wouldn't be great uses for the airport. Conversely, Solid would like to bring 400 great jobs here, and you have a sampling of the kinds of people that you would be bringing to live and work in Chandler. Many of them already live in Chandler. They want this to be their home, and you can tell from the enthusiasm with which the speakers have spoken tonight how close they are to the company. This is really an extended family. You've heard it from many people tonight, but it's true. They want to work here. They want to do it in this location. And one of the things we think this building does is it removes doubt. There's a lot of discussion about what happens. Well, first of all, we know, we've analyzed, this has not been a short process. We've been analyzing this for a year collectively, your staff and our team. We know that this building does not impede the ability to have a 5,550-foot runway. That some have pointed out could be slightly less as well. But the thing that you would like to do has been planned for, and it would be safe, and we don't impede it. The land is not owned by the city of Chandler, nor has the city of Chandler ever tried to buy it. The use that we're proposing has worked amazingly hard to find a way to put its building in a place that doesn't cause you problems with the additional runway extension. We've redesigned the building multiple times to make it work, to solve those problems. You'll have in that building a use that's acceptable in an airport area. And they're not going to make noise complaints. They understand that they're going to be an airport area. We know that nothing bigger than 30 feet will ever go there. There'll be a stipulation in place. You know that won't be agricultural or residential that might cause additional new problems down at the end of the runway. And you know that your consultants have had time to look at that. You know that if this project moves forward, you get new payroll dollars, you get new property tax dollars. Otherwise, you have to figure out what to do with the land. So we would leave you with the thought that bringing Solid to Chandler is great for everybody. And the idea that they could wait another couple of years to move their company to Chandler, it's not a realistic one. They move forward here or they move forward somewhere else. They've spent well over a year with your planning department, with your consultants, with not just our consultants, not just your planning consultants, the FAA, and ultimately your own team of consultants who've come in and analyzed the project and tried to make sure that it was not only safe, but to make sure that it would allow your runway to expand to 5,550 feet. And frankly, you have conclusive evidence of that in today's presentation. I'm happy to answer questions, but I think we've covered the issues tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a question? Okay. Okay. Go ahead, Councilman. You want to say something?
Okay. It's a long line. I'm going to make it longer. So after listening to all the presentation, I'm very convinced that Mr. Riggs, you must be a very good boss. And Solid Chemistry must be a very good company. If I have the honor, I would be promoted for you free. Okay? Okay, now I guess you know what I want to say. We welcome Solid Chemistry, but there's one concern. I don't think you choose the wrong location. We like you to come to Chandler anytime, but putting a building at the end of runway, That just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The city had trying to extend the runway for 20 years. We couldn't do it because a lot of residents was not educated. They were misinformed. If we extend the runway, it will be more noise. The fact is the opposite. If we extend the runway, we are bringing bigger jet and cause a lot of problem. It's actually just the opposite. You can ask the airport. I'm no expert on airplane or airport, but you can check around. Yeah. So if I say yes for solid cabinetry, we will just give one more reason not to extend the runway, which is definitely not good for the city. And it's also a waste of our investment in the past. The second issue is the safety concern. Yes, you can always argue, okay, it's no safety issue. If there's no safety concern, why we have so many people come here, why the airport community come here to protest it? Yes, there's a safety concern. Maybe from the expert point of view, it will work. Anything can work, but there's a concern. And I have been hiding something here for a whole day. This is a toothbrush I bought in Costco. It's very good. This is brand new. This is brand new, but I'm not going to use it. Why? Did you watch Seinfeld? Yesterday, I accidentally fell into toilet. I'm not going to use it. I know it's clean. I wash it. It's clean, but I'm not going to use it. Just think about that. You fly as a pilot. They know they can safely take off and landing, but there's just one building right at the end of the runway. Just think about that. Does that make sense to put a building at the end of airport runway? So,
thank you.
Yeah, one final. So we do need to have a fully operational, competitive airport. Like many people already say, we cannot be Scottsdale Airport, but we can be Chandler Airport. So I would like to urge my colleagues to say no on this. But also, I want to say, please welcome Mr. Riggs and Solid Cabinetry. The city welcome you. Thank you.
Council, motion, please.
Well, I'll make a motion. And with that, I do know that I also have a lot of friends on each side of this, and we'll be friends tomorrow. And I have to go with the evidence of the FAA as I've followed this. So I'm going to make a motion that we approve Resolution number 5197, APL 18-0001, Chandler Airport Area Plan Amendment to the Chandler Airport Area Plan from Parks and Open Space to Light Industrial. Introduction of ordinance number 4837, DVR 18-0003, solid cabinetry rezoning from agricultural Ag 1 to planned area development, PAD, for light industrial. Preliminary Development Plan, PDP, for site layout and building architecture of approximately 17.5 acres located at the southwest corner of Germain Road and Stearman Drive.
Thank you.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Hartke, a second by Councilmember McClymans. Discussion from the council.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Lopez. Vice Mayor Lopez.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
So, talked with quite a few of the applicants and the some of the airport commission and others, and this has been a hard one. I kind of had what I thought would be a decision early on, but in all honesty, I kind of have been, I wouldn't say pushed, but as I gathered more information, I kind of came to I landed on the fence. So, by the way, I'm not angry. My face is just red because I spent too much time in the sun yesterday with my son's mountain biking team. I'm a little hot under the collar, but that's not because of the subject matter here. So first, I want to thank the Riggs family and Solid Cabinetry, all of the employees that came out. One, community involvement is always appreciated, and also the flexibility and the willingness to work with the city and adjust to what we asked to lower the building heights in order to accommodate the FAA takeoff. I am also, and I've ran my previous election and this election on the purpose of wanting to help the airport. To me, the airport is a gem of Chandler. The airport provides not just dollars, but I mean, it provides a lot of activity. It's another employment development corridor for us. And to me, it's something that has been underutilized in the last 20 years that has been talked about. I believe that there's a lot more that can happen there, and I think with some more partnerships and what Wingspan is doing out there, I think are great activities that will help showcase the airport. And as part of that, to me, in our last presentation, the 5,000-foot runway seemed to kind of really be a big threshold that needed to be passed. That 5,000 was, I mean, again, a threshold. And 5550 that's been talked about lately, to me, that's a lot of gravy. That's a lot of icing on the cake. And the more that we can have, of course, the more weight you can have, the more safety factor. So the other side of it I see is, as Mr. Riggs talked about, and his patience with having that land and a lot of 20 years of evaluating this airport, going back and forth on whether or not the city would buy it, not buy it, you know, the different zoning cases that may have come forward. In my opinion, that again leans to when are we going to, what is our airport going to be like when it grows up? So that brings us to today. What were to happen? If Solid Cabinetry did not pass, would the city be willing to go and purchase this land for all of about 150 more feet of a runway, going from 5550 maybe to 5700? Is that bias a lot? The last time we had a big zoning case like this, I talked about how I don't like gambling with the taxpayer money. So we have a sure thing in front of us. We've got a very good applicant. We've got a very good company. To me, this means that we have a company that is showing interest for the lack of the possibility, and there were a lot of words that were used in this discussion: probabilities, possibilities, perceptions. I deal in facts. I'm an engineer by trade, right? So I deal in what do we have in hand. And this seems like a good applicant. It meets the FAA requirements that there's no hazard. The FAA consultant that we've been informed of is okay with it at 5550. So to me, I don't see how this particular building could hinder the airport at all. And I truly believe that our next steps will be to concentrate on getting that airport plan development done so that we can really get this airport to it past its infancy phase and into full maturity. Thank you.
Any other comments? I just have a couple of comments. I want to thank everybody for attending this evening. To me, this is a pretty simple resolution. It's a win-win. We've already established the runway is going to be 5550. It's a non-issue. It's going to be 5550. We decided that in 2016. We talk about economic development at the airport. We have economic development at the airport with Solid Cabinetry. That's what it is. So I think it's time to move forward, support Solid Cabinetry. We'll still have our runway. They've met every requirement we've put. You can only put an applicant through so many hurdles. They've been put through a lot of hurdles, and they've passed them all. They went through FAA. They did what they needed to do. Appreciate that. But it's a diversification of our tax base. It's an addition to the air park area that is greatly needed, diversifying the kind of jobs out there. And maybe it'll help contribute to that deficit that the airport is now running on the City of Chandler's general fund, as the presenter earlier mentioned, to the tune of about $350,000. So I see it as a win-win. Get Solid Cabinetry, good company. Mr. Steitler gets to sell his ground, and he's in. It keeps Chandler out of a Proposition 207 reverse condemnation lawsuit from Mr. Steitler. And it still gives the airport what it needs, a nice runway, a commitment from these council folks. So it's simple. I'll be voting yes. And with that, council, please vote the motion.
Motion carries by majority.
Okay, congratulations. Thank you. Good luck to all of you. I hope you don't have to get up too early for your work tomorrow. Okay, council, we will do current events on Thursday evening. And with that, we adjourn the council meeting.